Yeah, that door to the.
I got it, Doug. Yeah. All right, we're good, Doug. We're live.
Hey, Dave, right here.
I didn't read that. I didn't. All right, I'd entertain a motion to come out of executive.
Second.
Motion by Parker, second by Hauser. Roll call, Parker.
Yes.
Two,
Yes.
Cost,
Yes.
Hauser,
Yes.
and the Marmy is yes. So we are out of executive session. We had to discuss some things pertinent to contract negotiations in the budget. So nothing was decided upon, just information shared. We have three things on the agenda this evening. We are not going to act on any of them because these are going to be invoked using Rule 11 this evening at the meeting. So, but we do want to discuss the three different ones as far as the budget. So, which order would you prefer to go?
We can go general fund first.
Okay, general fund.
So, well, thank you once again. First and foremost, I want to thank Jim Wyson for leading the charge on this. Did a wonderful job. We've really worked on this all year. And, it's very detailed. Great job. Thank you. And along with Jackie Williams from my office. And I want to thank Fire Chief, Police Chief. Very cooperative, very easy to work with. It's important to know, we projected throughout the year that we were facing some tough times, so and in depths, and the chiefs were very cooperative working, and most departments cut between 20-25% of their budget that wasn't contractual, so we could get there. Income tax revenues were up some, which is good, and we certainly hope that continues on for next year, new development out the west end and so forth. With this budget, you see a reduction. We did, at this time, as where we're at, the city auditor, I'm not gonna bond next year for something that we don't have an income source, that funds it, the funding source. So with that being said, we have some safety issues in the city that we haven't put it in the service general budget. You see that number's gone up, and it's very important because we haven't finished this Orange Hill project, which is a backup for 911. There's a Mark Rady, Mark's radar in the schools. We have lights on 16 that need replaced with bulbs. We have traffic signals failing in the city. So I appreciate Mr. Rhodes being on top of that, identifying those so we can get that done and paid for next year. So it was a balancing act amongst everyone. Obviously there's less services in this budget, but it's funded. And I guess with that being said, is there any questions from any members that I can answer, or the administration can answer that we haven't talked about already?
Oh, I have a few.
Go ahead.
So in your budget, I guess I was a little confused. So you have an increase in wage insurance, but also your health insurance went up. When I see an increase in wage insurance, I typically see a decrease in the health insurance. And they both went up at the same time, 2,000% on the wage insurance, and then which we didn't have much in there before. But so someone's apparently waiving their insurance, but it doesn't look like it impacted the actual insurance, the health insurance.
Are you referencing the auditor's office?
The auditor's office.
Okay. Jim, are you familiar?
I don't know that particular situation. I can look into it for you, but yeah.
Okay.
We have. We can. I have this.
Doesn't know, so I don't know who it is.
Okay, yeah. And then in the law director's office, I see a 723% increase in sick leave conversion.
So if employees choose to cash out, that must be what that is.
So we've had a request for additional over, it went from $5,880 up to $12,000.
Not sure about that. I would check with my assistant. My guess is that more people decide to cash in their sick leave conversion.
They can, they have that ability.
Okay.
I'm sure Cindy's probably spoke to them about that. I think you'll see on those, one thing that we did in our office, we reached out to the chiefs and so forth, compensated absences, with retirements coming up and trying to kind of forecast that, which you see, we do have some retirements coming up, but in terms of specific sick time law, right?
I'm assuming more people have chosen.
And have that ability, yeah.
Okay,
Most departments, person I've been in contact with, will go and do a quick survey, their people and say, okay, how many of you are gonna want to convert some, and it fluctuates.
well, the thing is, like in this situation, we budgeted. For 2025, we budgeted 5,800, and then we increased it when it was adopted or amended. 8,500, excuse me, but we've only done 1,456, but I know that's usually done here at the end of the year,
Yes.
correct?
Yep.
So that number, I don't know yet what it's gonna be, but if it's gonna be less than that it's something to look at. So I see that the budget stabilization, of course, the operating transfer for that, in order to help balance the budget, correct? The $500,000.
Yes.
HR department increased postage by 90%. Is there a new process or something going on? The other thing is, I know that a lot of things can be done now. We don't have to use snail mail. The law has changed to authorize, especially in the judicial system, the usage of email and other forms, electronic forms, where postage is not necessary. So just, I'm looking anywhere where there's a significant increase. So we don't,
Look at postage,
yeah, postage under,
because I'm seeing a decrease.
human resources.
Yeah.
From $40 to 75.
I'm seeing from 700 to 400. On postage, 52.90.
Yeah.
Nothing but issue 70 to 550. And budget 400.
I don't know, you don't have their own. You're up. I'm under 115. It's 114. Yeah.
Just safety.
I'm on. Okay. Oh, and it's safety, it's not HR, sorry about that, I was looking at the wrong classification. It was the total there, so it's under safety. Safety is, the 90%. Yeah, most of the other stuff, the waived insurance or either that or you had notes on there. I'm noticing a huge increase in memberships, correct?
Which department do you go to?
A number of them actually. But I think they noted them, LCATs under memberships, I believe this is under Brian. No, it's under service, so, but I think it's dealing with the LCATs membership.
Yes, it's increasing. 65,000.
$65,000 increase for that.
Yeah, we'll get back with you on that tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, the memberships where I saw another. It's over 20% increase. Is under. The impound. No, wait, 157, oh, that's workers' comp. So our memberships into workers' comp, 157 account. And then police and fire pension went up significantly compared to the actual amount of pay. Increase, it was not like synonymous. So is it a higher percentage or is it just, how are those calculated?
Well, chief, speak to it, how the calculation works post.
I wasn't quite sure exactly where we landed with it, but we did notice a week or two ago, there was a little bit of a discrepancy between those numbers. And Tina, who handles that for us, is here tonight, but I know there was some discussion back and forth with the auditor's office. And where we attempted to land with that, I wasn't sure, but I believe that that was eventually right to. In terms of initially, there was a little bit of an overage. It was my understanding that was brought back down to the threshold of where it should be. So given that it potentially is not in front of you all, check on that, follow back up and vote tomorrow.
Yeah, because. Is that paid quarterly or is that paid monthly?
I'm just sure that I don't know.
I don't know, but Tina did call on that and we looked at it and there is a. I wanna call it an old bailout or something with years ago. And when they use that, when we make that payout and the timing that's involved with that, it causes this fluctuation. But the numbers worked out.
Yeah, because if it's monthly, we're trending towards lower than what the budget was. If it's, and then we went up an additional 35%. Based on if it's monthly and if it's just gonna trend the same in December as it did the other 11 months. Because we budgeted 933 last year, we're at 793, and then we budgeted for this year 1,076,000. The next area that I had was non-uniform fire. Cell phones went up over 700%. The cell phones. And we only spent $2,000 this year. And we're asking for 16,000 next year.
Yeah, we had converted in terms of, those aren't specific cell phones as you would normally see. There's a lot of wireless cards that operate the MDTs and computer screens that are in a truck. And with that mechanism, there's actually cost savings associated with that. However, the service provider is Verizon. So that was all put into that line item. So there's one on line item versus the other. So that's why you see a significant increase in that.
Okay.
Basically, we had a redundancy in
Oh, so it came from the wireless applications.
Account, the line
Yes.
below that.
Yeah,
So
took it away from that. Okay, that makes sense. So yeah, then we're more 15,000, 16,000. Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Do we, and I don't know, do we ever rebid the wireless service?
You look at it, yes.
Okay.
We do it time, different carriers have different coverage zone.
Yeah,
It can be limiting, I'll tell you, depending on certain places, so.
yeah.
Um. That's pretty much my questions. And a lot of times it's just a matter of just making sure we're checking over certain areas and make sure that if there's a legitimate answer, there's a legitimate answer. But those are things just stood out when I was reviewing it. Anyone else have anything they want to ask or anything? Yes, Mr. Howell.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thank you for all that work on the budget and everything. I'm sure this took a lot of hours for sure. Just thinking big picture here. Obviously, there were a lot of cuts this year, in the different departments. Where do you think from a projection standpoint, of course, you don't crystal ball, but like looking ahead to 27 and 28, like how well does this budget position us looking ahead, do you think? Right?
Yeah, increase revenue, city. Really not able to get around, we can't, I mean, we're contractually obligated on a lot of these fire police staffs, I mean. Again, they all did a great job at, reducing their budgets quite a bit. We can't continue to do it every year. It's not possible. Without just a major reduction in services. Reduction in workforce concern.
And I'll share what I foresee, right now, we had a little bit of a cash carryover this year to help us out. Based upon how tight our budget is this year, that cash carryover is not even projecting what we had this year. It was significantly less this year than last. Plus we have contractually, we've got pay raises coming up. So unless we increase revenue, we have zero paving going on. We have cut a lot of other services, small and large. And, we can't continue not to pave. We should not. That's one of the reasons why the government's here. So we have to find a way to increase revenue or restructure certain things. I'm gonna say that we need to look at our safety forces structure just to make sure it's most efficient. I'm not saying a reduction or anything like that. I'm just saying we need to look at our models and make sure our models are the most efficient models. And it probably won't save money initially, but it's looking at how can we reduce increases in expenses into the future. Usually those types of things don't save you money right out of the gate, but it would kind of stop the increases from being so high. Every area of our government, I know the mayor and his administration is constantly looking at ways of being more efficient. And we just got to continue to do that. 27 is not, and that's why Mr. Wyson, he does have a concern about next year and the year after, because we know the increases are built in as far as pay raises in particular. And we froze hiring is another thing. So how long can we hold that and still maintain our level of service that the citizens expect?
I think it is important to note that when you freeze hiring, and I just be somewhat cautious in saying that, because the positions that are there can be filled.
Correct.
Yeah. Just no addition. I had a department head today ask me that. I thought that just everything was froze. So,
yeah, it's just,
that's
legally they can, but we're trying to do things to make sure that, in particular, this last quarter, we looked at it to try to get that cash carryover for a little bit so that we can balance the budget. So I appreciate the mayor and the administration doing that.
Yeah, and I might say just a couple things. The general fund is nearly 500 lines of account. And you have to think of the magnitude of that. Postage, post offices to increase postage every 6 months. We never had that. You can't believe how much mail gets sent out of this place, required, sometimes certified, from the tax office and of course from the courts. Tax office didn't have to be certified, now it is. There's just, when you take little bits of raises and spread it across hundreds and hundreds of areas, it adds up. And so it's not unlike you experience at home on a small basis. I mean, it's just amazing, and we're not immune to any of that. So we're collecting more taxes, but the expenses are just unbelievable. I've said this 100 times, I mean, every city makeup and income tax is usually 65 to 85% of revenue on a city. And it's a gross paychecks times a percent. And that's really why we're sitting there with trying to raise income tax, the percentage. Because the top 20 cities, there's only about 2 or 3 cities like us that have below even 2.5%, and we were looking for 2.25. So, and that times your gross paycheck, obviously your gross paychecks are pretty high in big cities. They're higher than smaller cities like this. And then our top 5 employers are nonprofits. Great employment at LMH, 2,600 people, but they don't pay a profits tax. So you kind of have to understand the makeup of that. It makes every community a little bit different and sometimes hard to compare. So it challenges us. But on the other side, with apartment building and people moving in from out of this town will now be paying taxes in this town. That's another facet to raise revenue. So it's multifaceted in a lot of different ways. Some of that just takes a little longer to work, but these apartments seem to be running up pretty good as we're doing this around. We're having people with some pretty good revenue going into those, some of the demographics of that and everything. So there's other balls rolling in that court and it can work that way, but government ought to be efficient. And you know, I hate to put it on record, but I think a lot of communities out there waste a lot of money. They collect a lot of tax dollars and they waste a lot of tax dollars. And so we should be proud that we're very efficient. We have great departments that did a wonderful job this year. Kudos to all of them to make this budget balance. This is my 15th balanced budget, general fund budget, 15 years in a row. And all of our staff and all accounts ought to be very proud that we can get to that point and look at that and not have to postpone it 3 more months, which does nothing but a negative, to be honest with you. Putting off 3 months to make it mandated by March 31st doesn't help anything. We can start those efficiencies right away, but kudos for everybody working together. And it was a challenge this year, but we've got a balanced budget to present to you. So, thank you. And, you know, our department, I mean, everybody worked wonderfully on this, I thought, and just did an outstanding job. And Jim kind of steering the ship with the auditor's office, and it was all good. But when everybody works together, we get the best results.
Any other questions about the general fund? All right, let's move along then to the next one, which is our all other funds. Does anyone have any questions or comments on that one? This one was a little bit different, and in fact, they're on their own. So.
Just kind of an added comment, I mean, just to refresh, because we just kind of do this once a year, but it's every fund that doesn't start with 100 pretty much, that's not grant related. So it's special unique funds that generally need to be channeled in a certain direction when they're expensed. And it also can fluctuate over the years depending on the type of construction projects we're projecting. Don't forget, we can project we're doing a lot of sewer separation projects, those are big dollar projects. If we don't expense that this year, part of it would be expense next year. So it's almost a replication of an expense. If you think about that, so you can't kind of add all these up in a row and think over 5 years, that's what we spent necessarily. You know, certainly you're going to spend a lot in the beginning of the year, but you get weather like this, sometimes construction kind of shrinks up a little bit. And something that might have been expensed in December goes to next year's budget in January, and they do a good job of looking at that. We roll over purchase orders that are open and things like that. But these are kind of all the unique things around the community. When we were doing downtown improvement projects and separation, everything, this was a large account and had a high number because a lot of things going on. And we kind of had that way a little bit as we go forward too. But you know, it's unique things, and it's dollars that need to be spent in specific directions by ordinance or legislation or otherwise code.
Anyone have any questions or comments on that? All right, we'll move along then to the grants. Any questions or comments? These are basically ones where we get funding from a grant, and then we still have to budget for it and utilize it. That's why a lot of times, you know, during the year, if we don't use all of a grant, we have to give it back. If we get additional funds from a grant, we then put it in. This, the grants, some of them we know, some of them are unknown. We don't get them until, halfway through the year. We put in an application. We just do the best that we can to get the budget out there, and then we have to make adjustments as those adjust. So. And the other thing is, all three of these budgets are a snapshot in time. January 1, this goes into place. January 19th is the first time they'll be able to make any changes, because we will not have a finance committee meeting on January 5th. It's kind of one of my rules that I always put on there. We just passed the budget. Why would we ever need to make any changes the very first meeting? So, unless it's something dire emergency, I'm not planning on having a meeting on January 5th, a finance committee meeting. So, but we all know that that budget will change shortly thereafter. So.
I might just add too, it's just kind of, I guess, budgeting education or, the legislation you pass are the two items generally in each department, personnel and everything else. And that is the legislation, that's what hits the books. Years ago, all the broke down line items used to be passed. And anytime somebody wanted to move, I don't care, $100, because they didn't spend it on computers and wanted to use it for one other thing, they had to come to council. And there were just so many changes, it was ridiculous. That's done through a transfer process with 4 signatures, myself, the auditor, the department head, et cetera. It doesn't raise their bottom line at all. It just, I'm not spending it here, but I need it over here. It within that all lever or within that personnel. To go from personnel, which is a 5,100 account to a 5,200 account, or vice versa, has to come to council to change that a little bit. So again, you'll see some broke down items and details, but the legislation is really the pureness of what the ordinance is.
Yeah, the finance committees used to be like ridiculously long, because every single one of those, and the only thing is you can't cross over like the mayor said now, so it does reduce the number of things. Pretty much the departments are in control of their own budget within those categories. So, other questions and or comments?
Just that, thank you again, and again, I think councilman just feel assured, we have fire, police, in place. We are funding what I call funding for depreciation, some, for a rainy day, something happens with heating, cooling somewhere. Safety on the expressways. We can get that 911 backup completed, so, all right. I think it's overall, it's some.
And yeah, the other thing I'm gonna add, the auditor's office, I know this is not typical for us to get the budget and have as short of a window as we did, but they were on top of it well in advance. It was just a matter of they had to wait and see some numbers come in to make sure, because it was that tight. If they would have put it out there earlier, it could have changed dramatically. So they literally tried to wait till the last minute intentionally, because the budget is so tight. So I know they did the best they could, and they did what was best for us by waiting. That way we had a clear.
Yeah, we went to see the income tax reports from, from November, which came in December. So just kind of find thoughts on getting that funding for depreciation as well. So.
Very good. Well, thank you very much. With that, this finance committee meeting is adjourned. And we have service next.
Public Service Committee meeting order.
Those present, myself, Brad, Bailey, Cost, Line, and Chu. Next, resolution 25-82. Resolution authorizing the executive director of public service of the city of Newark, Ohio to enter into contract without competitive bidding, subject to the appropriation of funds for the purchase of a new dump truck and bid for the water distribution sewer maintenance department. Resource well, the state's cooperative purchasing program. Mr. Bob.
Well, so everyone's talking about budgeting for 26. I'm trying to spend the remaining 25 funds, so this was a dump truck that we had budgeted for in 25. And was kind of waiting until the end of the year to see if we did have the extra cash and didn't have to spend on another emergency. So we do have the cash available to purchase this in our water funds, total of $161,853. Source well, which is the state cooperative purchasing program. That is I put in my notes there, it's about $63,000 below their list price. So it seems expensive, but it does offer us a significant decrease in price. So looking for your approval to forward that on. Happy to answer any questions. It's replacing a dump truck that's about 16 years old. We've had a little bit of issue with that dump truck, and just trying to turn those over as we would with other fleet vehicles.
What happens with you?
We'll either auction it off, or if there's, some need in the city that it can be turned over to another department, but I doubt it for that.
Are you referenced to $63,000 below? Oh, especially a customer allowance, and I apologize for my voice. See, a customer allowance is $62,833.47 just for this gallon.
That's our state purchasing discount.
Any other questions? Motion.
Second.
Motion by Neely, seconded by Blind. Questions from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor of passing this out of council, signify by saying aye. All opposed, same sign. Gotta pass. 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, resolution 25-84. Resolution appropriating a new member to replace a citizen member vacancy, reappointing a citizen member and the local government member to the board of trustees of Newark Downtown New Community Authority and declaring an emergency. Mr. Malley.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening, committee members. This is really some housekeeping item for what is relatively new, this Newark Downtown Community Authority. And because of its newness, when it was originally set up for the board of directors, the directors were kind of laddered in or staggered in. So there was a couple of them just had 1-year terms and the other ones had 2-year terms. So what's before you tonight is the reappointment of a couple of the city council appointment members, which is Corey Koffenbaugh and Brandon Hess. Their terms have expired and we want to reappoint them for 2 years. I do recommend that you do this appointment. And then also under city council is what's called a local government representative, and Fred Ernest, the director of Newark Development Partners, held that position. Fred, as I think you know, has retired from Newark Development Partners and is going to resign his position here on the board. And so we'd like to, in his place, appoint Patrick Sullivan, who is the new executive director of Newark Development Partners. In this particular case, he is going to be appointed to fulfill the existing term of Fred Ernest, which will run through June 16 of 2026. And then I'll come before you again to probably do a reappointment for Patrick. And then lastly, in the legislation, are the made oral appointments, and myself and Director Hickman are due to be reappointed for another 2-year term. And I would recommend that you consider those and grant those appointments as well. Any other questions? I'll be glad to answer.
It's pretty merciless.
First, because we just need to get it done. We're at the end of the year, and be honest with you, this is relatively new, and the attorneys overseeing this kind of got to us rather late to have these appointments done. Some of these actually expired in June 25. Not a problem. The legislation was written so they could be extended through the end of the year. We'd really like to get this cleaned up and taken care of.
Questions for the committee?
Motion.
Motion by Neely,
Second.
seconded by Blind. Questions from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor passes, council, say aye.
Aye.
All those same sign. The vote will pass with a vote of 5-0. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all very much.
That concludes the service committee meeting for this evening. Up next will be ways and means. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Draft that statement. Mr. Fox is gonna give us an update on the River Road.
Yeah, thank you. So I want to provide a little update on River Road, closure. Had a few social media posts and some requests on what's happening out there. The sewer line project is going as expected. We had a 60-day closure on that road to get that road closed and back open, which is January 10th. So they are still shooting for that date, the second week of January. But next week, the current Redwood Apartments have to access their driveway from the west. So they come down River Road and access from the west. Next Tuesday or Wednesday, that road closure will move the barricades so that Redwood Apartments will enter their driveway or their road from the east. So that is what's going to change next week. Granville schools have been notified about that. The post office has been notified about that. But some customers are getting notices from Granville busing to tell them about that change. And so that's what's happening next week. So when the kids come back to school on January 6th, Redwood Apartments will be entering from the east, from the roundabout side. So that's the big change that's going to happen next Tuesday or Wednesday.
Thank you.
If you have any same questions on.
Questions from anybody?
That's rating.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Now we'll adjourn the safety committee meeting. And our next will be.
Yeah, it's ways and means. All right, good evening. Let's call this Ways and Means Committee to order. With me are Mr. Shute, Mr. Labutus. Before us, we're going to consider ordinance number 25-48. It's quite a bit of reading, so here we go. It's an ordinance levying an additional income tax of 0.5% for the purpose of raising general operating revenue specifically dedicated to police and fire protection on all salaries, wages, commissions, and other compensation earned by the residents of the city of Newark. On all salaries, wages, commissions, and other compensation earned by the non-residents of the city of Newark for work done and services performed or rendered in the city of Newark. On the net profits earned on all businesses, professions, or other activities conducted by the residents of the city of Newark. On the net profits earned on all businesses, professions, and other activities conducted in the city of Newark by non-residents, and on the net profits earned by all corporations doing business in the city of Newark as a result of the work done or services performed in the city of Newark, requiring the filing of returns and furnishing of information by employers and all those subject to said tax, imposing on employers the duty of collecting the tax at the source and paying the same to the city of Newark, providing for the administration, collection, and enforcement of said tax, declaring violations thereof to be a misdemeanor, and imposing penalties therefore, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That was a lot to say. And good evening. Yeah, so in short, this is a safety levy.
Yes.
It's 0.5% and all the money generated from this will go specifically to the police and fire. The necessity of this, I think, is well documented in the conversations that were had in the finance committee and comments from the mayor and comments from the chairman of the finance committee. So I don't think I need the board to get up with repeating a lot of those things. This money is desperately needed. The police and fire department had to cut between 23 and 28% from their operating budget. There's only so much that you can cut from an operating budget. And then your next step is you got to start looking at your personnel. We've had a lot of forward momentum in our safety forces. We have top-notch people, we have top-notch equipment, we have top-notch training, and we need to keep that. So the passage of this levy would be is vital to that. So having said that, if there's any questions I can answer for the committee, please.
First, why emergency?
Because there's a filing deadline with Board of Elections.
Okay. So you're filing an emergency to be sure that it's put on the ballot.
In the May, yes, we'd like to get it on the May primary ballot.
Anyone else?
What is the filing then?
Filing deadline.
February.
That would be the partisan or any issues deadline.
If you don't do the emergency, and even if you waive the 2-day reading rule, then it sits for 30 days before can be enacted, so that would not meet the deadline. If you have the emergency, as soon as it is passed, it goes into effect as soon as the mayor signs it.
It's 90 days before the election, so that's all right.
Yeah, I knew I thought the filing deadline was in February. I was just confused why we had to do it right now. So. Thank you.
Okay,
Was there, may I,
sure, absolutely.
I'm sorry.
No, that's all right.
And I don't know if this is to you or to the mayor, but I'm curious, was there any thought to address an income tax that would, sort of support the entire enterprise and not just safety forces? We have heard that the budget constraints are an enterprise-wide issue with the city of Newark. So I realize we tried that before, but I wondered, if there was any discussion about that again, and trying to make that case a little better, that we need this revenue across the entire city.
Yeah, well, first of all, this is in response to feedback that we got from the voters. So the concern that the voters had with the previous levy was the fact that the lack of specificity in it and where that money's going. We got some feedback that said, well, I would be in favor if that money was going to police and fire. If I knew that money was going there, I'd be more prone to vote for it than just putting it into the general fund. So that's one of the reasons. Secondly, keep in mind that the money that's generated from this will not fund police and fire. Okay, they will still need to be funded from the general fund. So this will help relieve some stress off the general fund.
Well, and to that point, the specificity point, there's still not a great deal of specificity in this. I mean, we're not saying that if we fund this levy, then we're not gonna shut down Firehouse. So we're gonna make sure that, the police department's at full uniform strength. I mean, we're saying, hey, this is gonna help, but this isn't necessarily the cure, right?
Well, I don't think I understand the question.
Just back to the point of why there wasn't more, why are we discussing, addressing a more comprehensive solution? Because to your point, it sounds like this might not be, the entire fix. This might help for a couple of years, but is this gonna fix the problem that we have enterprise-wide?
Well, there's no guarantees. I mean, I can't stand up here and make any promises about where exactly this money will be spent. I mean, other than it will go to police and fire. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts and pieces to that, and we've had discussions with chiefs, with the mayor, with the administration on some different ideas. So there's a lot of planning that goes into this. So as things develop, I think we'll be able to provide a clearer picture as to where to go.
I could probably make a comment on that. Really, I'd say if we went 0.25%, absolutely, it's not a fix. I think the 0.5% plus the projected additional revenues because of population increases and housing, we look pretty optimistic about that moving forward. Really, it does. Again, as Director Hickman really said, levies that passed were more specific this last November. Police, fire, streets and roads and bridges, things that were, it would seem like the voters are a little hesitant about general fund, that word general a little bit, and they're a little concerned about that. It isn't a complete rearrangement of funds in some ways, as much as it may seem, but we just we need to pass it if we want to pave streets and keep things going on. This money doesn't go to pave streets, it goes to police, fire, but we may say, well, all the services across the city are equally important. I'm not sure there's anything more important than police and fire. And, you know, I'm not, there's several very important, that isn't saying anything, because what is safety? Is it also plowing streets so the cruisers and the transport units can get through and things like that? So coupled, but again, because the general fund's still gonna have to bail out police and fire a little bit like it does the schools. Because license plate permissive tax and gasoline excise tax isn't enough. With license plate permissive tax, for instance, went up 4 times on the revenue, the percentage went from 5 to 20%, at the same time, cost of asphalt went up 4 times. So, you know, so it's looking at trying to let the voters feel more comfortable to vote positive for something that the city needs that'll help everything. I mean, the realistic side, we're not gonna go, we'd like to get this passed, and you're not gonna go back anytime soon to do another. And there's only certain areas we can raise revenue. I mean, income tax is a big one of those, obviously, but again, as like I'm saying, we're trying to get the population a little up and get more residents living here and get more jobs. Newer apartments attract people that have a higher income generally, there's a little higher rent. So they're gonna pay a little higher income tax at the end of the day. So it's kind of a very complex couple thing, but we're trying from a lot of different directions, so maybe this direction. A lot of them are 2.5%, we're looking at 2.25%, so that's a little less, and rightfully so. I think it's good at that. So.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Mr. Hauser.
Thank you. I just had a quick question. So would it be fair to say whether or not we keep the same language as the previous levy or maintain the language or reuse this language, the net effect on the budget is going to be essentially the same? Would that be fair to say?
Well, I don't know, you could quite say, I mean, really, to be honest with you, we have 0.5% going to police and fire now, they'll be guaranteed a 1%. Now, that's not enough to do the budgets needed, but I would say the future is uncertain to everything, so it does put more heavy weight that we need to. I mean, this administration and council believes in what we believe in today, but I don't know 5 or 10 years from now, you know, does everybody come way back on police fire? I have no idea, but they're guaranteed at least that 1%. So, but we put focus there anyways. I don't know that it's a whole big shifting to your point. I'd say a little bit, but you know, we need to have we need to have the voters understand and feel comfortable with what they're voting on. So.
Okay, any other comments, sir?
Thank you. And this may be a broader question for the two of you. Are we looking at a more simplified messaging? Because if what Beth read goes on the ballot.
Right.
Nobody's gonna understand, and that's part of some of the feedback I heard, is that they didn't understand the language. They were confused by it, so is there a simplified language plan or that we're considering?
Yes. To answer that, I mean, it's like anything, also be some very firm, concise bullet points to explain to voters exactly what this is. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, moving forward, this may be an opportunity to gain further trust and interaction with the public, saying we are specifically focusing on safety, and this is where this money is going to. Now, as council, this will give us the opportunity to focus on the other things that are very important to our voters as well. Anyone else? Gentlemen? Okay, I have a motion. I'm sorry, Chief.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the committee, I appreciate the time to be able to speak to you this evening. On behalf of the largest division in the city, in terms of trying to be a student of the game, in terms of historical where we've been, getting all prepared and planning for today, but also looking for a strategic plan moving forward. I see no other way to ensure that we have sustainability in the services we provide without some additional revenue coming in to the safety forces specifically in the city. So I appreciate all the concerns that have been brought up and discussed. And I can't say that I don't have some of my own as well. But I, on behalf of the fire department and the firefighters, who trust in this. And I'm simply here just to ask for your support, get this legislation out to get it on the ballot to the voters. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else?
I might just add something too. I think the city is moving in a great direction and everybody seems to be on board with that. And it isn't, it costs money to do that. And I would say to make it attractive, to attract more people and more businesses and more employers and not to grow exponentially, but just you have to grow a little bit. And I surely do analysis of other cities across the state, whether I visit them or talk with different ones. And there's a number of cities that have declined in population for years. And I'm not sure, that's a tough place to get into. And I would tell you, it doesn't resolve too much of anything and work well. So we work real hard to just have steady growth to solidify the city and keep it moving. Columbus has 900,000 people. Their income tax collections are $900 million a year. We have 51,000 people. Ours is income tax collection about 30 million. So it's not even proportionate nearly. They're nearly 2 to 1 to us. But that's because that high gross paycheck from all those big corporations, and they've been 2.5% for quite a few years. So we're not, I want people to remember the income tax and municipal collection is earned income, not unearned income. Unearned income would be investments, interest, dividends, etc. Earned income, W-2 income, Schedule C incomes and things. So it is a more preferable tax to fixed income retired people. Obviously, property taxes affect everyone that owns property, but income tax affects those that are actively working. And to take that 0.5% and translate that into dollars, which I think is a little easier to understand, for every $25,000 worth of earned income, it's an extra $10 a month. $25,000 of their income, $10 a month more. $50,000, $20 a month more. And just being honest, there's a lot of people that spend way more than that on coffee every month. And this is to put money in, why your Starbucks and River Road and everybody will roll. But this is to put money back into your community that you love and live at and to keep it healthy and strong. We've gained a little edge on paving streets, and you've seen when we balance the budget. But now we're gonna rescind on that a little bit. Those are things that are gonna suffer just a little bit. You know, our biggest cost, like any business, is wages. But you want professional people doing these jobs. When you want a medic to pull up and handle a situation that someone's having a health condition, I think you want somebody that has the amount of training we put into them and the professional job they do. When you have police respond to an active situation, you want the right professionals, and I'll tell you, we have that. And if you don't offer the proper wages, you won't get that. So it does cost money to do things professionally in the right way, but this city is doing it, and we'll continue to do it that way. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Labutus on a second. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor of ordinance number 25-48, please signal by saying aye. All opposed, same side. All right, it passes. All right, thank you very much. Thank you. All right, next we're gonna consider resolution number 25-83. This is much shorter. It's a resolution providing for the submission to the electors of the city of Newark, Ohio of the question, shall the ordinance providing for 0.5% additional levy on income specifically dedicated to police and fire protection within the general revenue fund of the city be passed? And this is declaring an emergency. Anyone speak to this?
It's the same thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I
just
do
to
have
be
a
sure.
question though,
Yes, sir.
and it's up to the committee, but can we include earned, the word earned in there? Earned income?
Sure, I was just talking to Ken, so we can make it more specific,
Yeah.
maybe perhaps easier to read. And we can work on that language.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, because that will help with our senior community. Yeah, thank you very, very much. All right. Any other comments? Any comments from the committee? Okay, thank you. Do I have a second? All in favor? Please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, thank you very much, and resolution number 25-83 passes. All right, this will conclude the Ways and Means Committee for this evening. Thank you. Sir. Sir.
That was on the. Now, it was up on the shelf. The bigger one. I didn't know that. I really told you, I mean, since.